The first Venom film opens with the Bioengineering Corporation, the Life Foundation, sending a probe into space that discovers symbiotic life forms. The probe brings 4 samples back to Earth, but one manages to escape. Life Foundation CEO Carlton Drake and his team discover that the symbiotes need an oxygen-breathing host to survive and begin running human trials. Investigative journalist Eddie Brock reads about these trials in classified documents belonging to his fiancée and decides to publicly confront Drake, leading to both Eddie and Anne's firings, which causes them to break up. 6 months later, Dora Skirth, a scientist working for Drake, approaches Eddie to help expose what the Life Foundation is really up to. In the past 6 months, one symbiote has died and countless human test subjects have been killed through their experiments. And so Dora helps Eddie break into the Life Foundation facility to find incriminating evidence. While there, one of the symbiotes transfers onto Eddie without him realizing. After discovering strange symptoms, Eddie visits Anne's new boyfriend, Dr. Dan Lewis, who discovers the symbiote is inside Eddie. Meanwhile, Drake discovers Dora's betrayal and exposes her to his final captive symbiote, killing them both. Drake sends his team of mercenaries after Eddie to retrieve the escaped symbiote, but it manifests itself and fights off the attackers. The symbiote introduces itself to Eddie as Venom, and explains that the symbiotes were searching for a planet full of inhabitants that they could devour and possess. Although that seems like a pretty serious and scary threat, Eddie shouldn't worry, as Venom promises to spare him. And Eddie takes a liking to the new superpowers that being inhabited by a symbiote grants him. There is a downside to all of this though, as it turns out that the symbiote is slowly rotting Eddie's organs. Venom promises the damage can be reversed, but Eddie and Anne still decide it best to separate Eddie and Venom. Unfortunately, that's exactly when Drake's team finally manages to capture Eddie. Speaking of Drake, that fourth symbiote that managed to escape at the beginning of the film has found its way back to him. That symbiote is known as Riot, and Drake joins with him and plans to travel to space and bring the rest of the symbiotes back to Earth. Elsewhere, and reluctantly bonds with Venom to free Eddie. When Eddie and Venom reunite, Venom reveals that he's had a change of heart and wants to protect Earth's people from a symbiote takeover, and so the duo race to the space probe launch where they fight the bonded Riot and Drake. Eddie has the upper hand as he's discovered that the symbiote's 2 major weaknesses are fire and high-pitched noises. Ultimately, Venom causes the probe to explode, killing Carlton Drake and his final symbiote, and is made to think that Venom died in the explosion too. But secretly he's still bonded with Eddie, and the two work together to rid San Francisco of any criminals, including a group of robbers at Eddie's favorite convenience store, run by Mrs. Chen. The story continues in Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Eddie Brock is tasked by police detective Patrick Mulligan to speak with imprisoned serial killer Cletus Cassidy in the hopes of getting him to reveal information on his various murders. This interview helps Venom deduce the locations of Cletus's various victims, giving a massive boost to Eddie's journalistic career. Eddie and Venom's work helps convict Cletus and earn him a death sentence, but as Eddie attends the killer's execution, Cletus attacks him and bites his hand, ingesting some of the symbiote. As Cletus is subjected to lethal injection, the symbiote evolves and reveals itself as Carnage, protecting Cletus from death and helping him escape his imprisonment. Cletus and Carnage agree to work together, with Carnage helping Cletus break his lifelong love Francis out of a mental institution in exchange for Cletus helping Carnage kill Eddie and Venom. Years ago, the young Cletus was forced to watch as his fellow orphan true love Francis was taken from their orphanage to the Ravencroft Institute for the Criminally Insane. On her way, Frances revealed her superpowered sonic screams to attack the police. A younger Patrick Mulligan, then a rookie cop, shot Francis to protect his allies, while Francis's scream damaged his hearing. Ultimately, Frances was captured and imprisoned at Ravencroft, where her powers were subdued. Back in the present, Eddie is struggling with the news that his ex-fiancée Anne is now engaged to her new boyfriend, Dan, and that's not the only relationship turmoil he's going through, as Venom has grown resentful at not being allowed to eat the criminals that he and Eddie apprehend. As their partnership grows more fraught, Eddie and Venom break up and separate, leading to Venom going his own way. After Cletus and Carnage violently rescue Francis and destroy their childhood orphanage, Detective Mulligan becomes determined to stop them. He begins suspecting Eddie for his proximity to various crimes in the area, unaware that Eddie and Venom were actually a crime-fighting duo. Mulligan has Eddie arrested and interrogated for his potential association with Cletus, forcing Eddie to call on and for help. And seeks out Venom, who now inhabits Mrs. Chen, and convinces him to reconcile with Eddie. After they break Eddie out of prison, Cletus kidnaps Mulligan and Francis kidnaps Anne, taking them to a church to goad Eddie and Venom into a final showdown. Eddie, Venom, and even Dan show up at the church to defeat Cletus, Carnage, and Francis and save Anne and Mulligan. As Venom and Carnage fight, Francis enacts her revenge on Mulligan for shooting her all of those years ago by stabbing him and choking him to death. As Venom becomes overpowered by Carnage, he tricks Francis into using her powers on him, separating Eddie and Cletus from their symbiotes and causing the church's bell to dislodge from its tower, crushing Francis to death. Before Carnage and Cletus can remerge, Venom devours them both, defeating the villains once and for all. As Eddie and Venom depart the city on a vacation getaway due to their identity being made public, Mulligan is revealed to have survived Francis' attack due to a new symbiote birth from Carnage named Toxin, possessing him and saving his life. In a post-credit scene, the vacationing Eddie Brock and Venom are transported to an alternate universe due to a mistake in a spell cast by the superhero Doctor Strange. As seen in the film Spider-Man No Way Home, villains of various Spider-Men from across a multitude of multiverses were accidentally pulled into one universe, including by mistake this version of Eddie Brock and Venom. As Spider-Man saves the day and reverses the spell, all of the villains, including Eddie and Venom, are returned to their proper home. But Venom does accidentally leave a piece of his symbiote behind in the other universe, which is sure to cause a lot of issues in the future.